I was a grunt. I was an infantry.
Man, that's sitting behind the desk and look like it was not.
Now everybody calls somebody.
Everybody calls somebody, right? So
this industry has a lot to offer. It can be.
You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Aline, the co-author of the books Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the leading digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you get a chance, hit that button, the like button, subscribe button, leave us a comment, leave a review, all of those things. If you want to continue the conversation beyond what you're just listening to here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success podcast group, the Roofing Success group on Facebook. Today we got George Villegas out of with Marva Roofing. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, George, I know you have you didn't start off in roofing. What's your story? How'd you get into roofing?
Well, I did and didn't. So when we were younger, we grew up. Yeah, we grew up in a family that was my uncle. He was in roofing. Yeah, he still has his business. He's been around for like 50 years, and we sort of like it was our weekend thing to do. Have a little bit of extra money while we were going to school. So I learned roofing early on, but it wasn't based on what we had to do and being grunts, picking up trash, hauling shingles up the roof. I was like, this is not what I want to do ever for a living, right? But here we are. Here we are many yeyears later. But
we talked before and you carried shingles. You did grunt work on the side to make a little extra money, but that wasn't your path, right? Your path was college.
Correct. So I got a partial scholarship to go to college, and I took advantage of that, and I went. Little did I know that it was only for the first year. So back then, we talked to counselors. It's not like now, all these programs, financing, counselors talk about all these career paths. I mean, back then, they were happy you graduated from high school. So going to college was like, oh, you want to go to college? Well, let's see what we can do, right? And they figured out, they got me a scholarship. And I went to UT in Austin, and unfortunately, again, I didn't know it was only for the first year. So after finishing my first year, I definitely wanted to stay. It was something that I thought was the best career path for me, a 4-year degree, get my job and put in my years and retire, right? So I was struggling to make ends meet, doing part-time jobs here and there, including some roofing. And unfortunately, it just was too much. A full load in school, 2 part-time jobs, just couldn't do it. And just happened to be that the recruiters were on campus, the Army recruiters, and they offered me a tuition assistance program where they would give you it was the GI Bill, $150,000 for 3 years of service. So I was like, why not? I'll do it, and I'll get my degree, and then I'll get out. I'll go serve my time. Fortunately or unfortunately, it was during the desert. So as soon as we got out of AIT, straight out to war. So I kind of got the taste of that. But for most people, as soon as they got done with that, they were out. They served their 3 years, and but something happened. I just enjoyed it, and I decided to make a career of it. And I stayed for roughly 13 years.
All right. And in that time in your Army, everyone gets a career in the Army. What was your career path in the Army?
Oh, I was a grunt. I was an infantry. Yeah, but like I said, I didn't have any college, and I scored okay on the ASVABs, but they gave me a few options. But I was more excited about. I didn't know the reality of the whole thing, right? None of my family had ever been in the military, so I didn't. I didn't understand what it
Yeah.
was. And at the beginning, we weren't at war when I enlisted. So right after training, we went to war. So it was it was a rude awakening, but we managed to work it out. I clicked with the military. It seemed simple. I think I needed some guidance in my life. And for sure, it's by the numbers there, so it's easy to get used to it. It's easy to get to follow that career because they're telling you where to be, what time to be, what to wear. So I kind of needed a little structure in my life. And
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what made you make a career out of it, right? Like, because that makes a lot of sense. Like, there's something comforting to that, right? Like, if that's a good word for it. I don't know if that's a good word for it, but hey, I mean, when you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to think about your paycheck ever being there or not being there. It's going to be there. It's, like there's something to that. So then you, in your career in the
Army,
your career comes to an end in the military, and where did you go from there?
So fortunately, I did take advantage of all the training and being able to do college on the side on the weekends or via satellite learning. So almost every post you go to, they've got in the library, they have a way that you can enroll in classes and continue your education, right? So, and then they do give you credit for certain things you get trained on the military for credit, college credit. So by the time I got out, I had my 4-year degree, and it was in computer science. And unfortunately, by then I'd grown out of it. It wasn't really, I mean, I finished it, but it really wasn't something I liked. I liked being on the field. I liked grunt work. I liked, working with my hands. And in my first job after being in the military was with a Fortune 500 company out of Atlanta that was an IT company, worked for municipalities. They offered me a job as a project manager. Because I came from a military background, I had a lot of structure, a lot of discipline. I was really gun-ho. They'd say jump, I'd say how high, that kind of attitude. So I clicked with the company, immediately was promoted to a branch manager. And I did that for a number of years. Again, I just wasn't happy. It was I don't know what it was. It's just being cooped up in an office. I mean, almost 24/7 on the phone all the time. Just it got hectic. It just got claustrophobic.
I get it. That's what happened to me too. My degree was in management of information systems, which is very similar to computer science. And I started out of college, not out of the military, but out of college as a programmer, right? I was doing server-side programming, building these big back-end websites and things like that, or applications, not even websites. They were applications. And man, that sitting behind the desk and look like that was not it. That was. So I feel you there. So then I know that it was more of a family. There was a family reason to move back to Texas, and then that got you back around the roofing business, around your uncle's roofing business. How did that transpire?
So I moved back to South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, and that's where my uncle has his company. But I moved down here, and I guess I was just cocky, and I thought I'll just move over there and get myself another $200,000 job, right? Man, I come to South Texas, and the best paying job with the experience I had paid $60K. Yeah, so I was gonna go to less than half of what I was making in Atlanta. I'm like, I can't live off of that, so I got to figure something else out. So I did. I actually did some consulting on my own from what I had learned through the company I was working with. That went sort of well, but it was just to make ends meet at the time, and I started selling for my uncle, and so I kind of got the taste of it of what kind of income you can make. But I still didn't know. I was in the dark in terms of what the business can be, because they're old fashioned. I mean, they do all what they call word of mouth. They really don't advertise a whole lot, but I mean, they've been in business so long that it's enough, right, to make a living. But I was more. And that more came when my first time I was invited through an acquaintance to go do a work storm, a hailstorm. And I was like, oh, goodness, this is where it's at, right? I had 2 crews and doing 2 roofs a day. Even though we were being paid as installers, it was still real good money because we were knocking them out. I mean, and we'd work on the weekend because we were out of town paying hotels and whatever. So I was like, yeah, this is it. This is where it's at. And I followed a few companies throughout the Texas and the East Coast, Florida up to North Carolina. And since I knew those areas, as I've been there so long, I enjoyed it, right? So I did storm work for several years, but still, I was a grunt. I was on the roof. I was getting materials up the roof, helping the guys finish jobs that we were trying to meet deadlines on, and I still had a job, and I was making good money, not where I wanted to be at, but I was making real good money. But just something wasn't right. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out and start looking for my own customers. So I stopped chasing storms, came back to Texas, opened up my shop, and I said, I'm going to invest in my business. So I bought a Zimmerman machine to roll panels, got into metal roofing, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is what's gonna put me over, right? I've got all this equipment and I got all these crews, and now we're gonna make some serious money. Nothing, man. We couldn't break $1 million for some reason. I mean, we just kept working and working, and there was nothing at the end. And that happened for years, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was going on. It wasn't until I saw some videos from Dimitri on YouTube, and I was like, what's he talking about? So I start following him. Then he mentions other names, and I'm start looking at those other names, and I follow the links, and I'm going. So one whole weekend, I just binge watch all these videos from all these roofs. So I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing everything wrong. No wonder I can't get ahead.
What were some of those things that you were doing wrong? Let's start with those, man, because those are the lessons, right?
I didn't even know how much I was making on a roof. I didn't have any numbers. I just buy it. I get the checks. I'd buy the material. I'd hire the guys. We'd go get some more things. We'd go a day over this or a day over that. And then in the end, I was like, did I make any money? I mean, I didn't know. And then since we didn't have time to actually, I didn't make time, but to check the numbers before the next job started, we just kept going and going and going. At the end of the year, there was no money left.
It's crazy, isn't it? I think that a lot of times early on in business, before you learn the number side, and everyone does this, and it's not just in roofing. I think it's in a lot of businesses that they price jobs arbitrarily, or they just look at, hey, what's that guy charging? What's that guy charging? Let's charge that, without any understanding of what their numbers are, right? And I think that's where you were, right? How did you decide of what to charge when you back then, before you knew your numbers? How did you decide this is what I'm charging?
Exactly like you said it. Whatever other people were charging, we just charged that or less to try to win the jobs. Never really looked at what our cost was. Never. Just charge whatever.
So that was the first thing you looked at, right? That was the first thing out of all these lessons, going deep on Dimitri's videos and everyone else, all this other content in the binging out on all that. You find out, man, I'm not even looking at my numbers. So now, how did you start to implement that into your business, like watching your numbers? What were some of the first things you did there?
We got a CRM software. So we started off with AccuLink. We got trained on it. We started using it. And I mean, it was amazing, right? Knowing where I needed to be by getting an alert, knowing when my material was getting delivered, how much it cost me, being able to book a crew, give them clear instructions of what they're going to do and how much I'm going to pay them. all those things. I mean, the
Yeah.
CRM just, it saved us when it came to the numbers, and also it made us very productive, right? And now we didn't waste a whole lot of time. We didn't waste resources. We're not having to go back to, oh, let's get another pipe boot, and let's get another this, and I mean, just trips to the store constantly. We were able to do work orders and do material orders, and I mean, now we're matching them to. We also got iRoof. Before we were measuring roofs, by hand.
By
And
hand, yeah.
I mean, I didn't know any better. That's what my uncle did. I didn't know any better. And I did use for a little while EagleView, and I love it. It's just I couldn't afford it at the time. Not the big reports that tell you everything, right?
Yeah.
And I looked for options, and I found iRoof, and I'm still using it.
That's awesome. So it was the technology. The first thing that kind of came into play that helped you really get things in line was the technology, and specifically the CRM.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And isn't that crazy coming from the tech background that wasn't that was the thing that saved it,
you don't think about it, right? Like, why did I do this? I mean, I know this, right?
Yeah. And I don't know exactly what you were doing in IT for the, multiple 6-figure income that you were getting. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times we just don't look at like, oh, this is the same thing as this. Like, there's so much that you can learn from what other businesses or industries are doing, to do that. So now you have your CRM. All of a sudden you see this job flow, you see your work orders going out, material orders, everything is starting to line up. And now you're seeing your numbers. How did you feel about your numbers when you first started really being able to see them?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is like the potential here. I'm like, this is a real business. That's when I really started looking at it like, okay, this is it. I got to invest all my time, energy, and whatever money I got on making this work, and I'm going to do it right. So I binge watch and listen to your podcast, a bunch of other podcasts, and I was like, this is it. So, because what I'm telling you just started happening maybe 3 years ago. I mean, even before that, we were still struggling every year. I was like, okay, we made a living, but that's it. And things turned around, and pre-pandemic is when we started with everything. And it just our business around. It really did. It turned our business around.
So now after you understood your numbers, now how do you think about your pricing? How, just lay that out for me.
So what we do now is we definitely like everybody else, we want to be competitive, right? We don't want to price ourselves out of being competitive, right? But what we do is we check what our costs are, and I include everything, all the technology I got built into this, time, office staff. I got all these numbers now written down, in a percentage of it goes towards every job, that we're doing. And then I tack my margins on top of that. And now I'm like, okay, this is the number I need to be at. And now, there's certain cases, right? There's certain if you go to an A-frame house that's up and over, I'm like, and they want a little discount, why not? The guys are going to knock it out, right? So we still make exceptions. It's not like we got a price and we stick to it. I mean, we try to, but so we really, what we watch is the bottom line, the margin. What's the margin at the end? Are we still within the margin that we want, right? And the CRM lets us see that.
Yeah. And so you have a margin that you're shooting for, but at times you'll reduce that, but never below the margin that you won't accept, right? Like,
Nimbus won't let me.
What's that?
Job Nimbus won't let me. It's when I start putting in my budget and all that, it tells me you're going below your set margins. So I'm like, okay, then obviously we can't do it, right?
So you started with AccuLinks, you moved over to Job Nimbus now. Okay, perfect.
Right. So because of it's just for us, their pricing structure worked better. I mean, it's not a per user. I'm grandfathered into their pricing structure, and no matter how many users I add, I still get the same pricing, and it just works for me.
Yeah, for sure. And And that's important. But now, again, using technology, right? Like you set your minimum, you set up your margins in Job Nimbus, right? So you told Job Nimbus, you told your software, this is where I want to be. This is my minimum, right?
Right. Right.
This is what makes a job profitable or not profitable for me. So now you enter it into the system and it says, don't do that. Right? This is not, don't do this job, George. This is not.
And you know what really got us in the past was that people would ask me and they wanted a price right away, and you're eager to win their business, right? So you pull this number on the top of your head without really thinking, right? Every house is a little different. Every job is a little different. And once you add all these different little chimney flashing, wall flashing, covering the flower beds, doing extra things.
That's right.
It all adds up. And then in the end, we had all these jobs that we were doing, charging good, I thought good money, and there was no profit in it. But now we don't. I mean, our sales, we have 3 salespeople, and they're trained as all your estimates, don't give a number. All your estimates come from the system, whatever it produces. Because what I did is I trained them to use it, but I also created automation and templates. So for them, once they produce an iRoof report, it gives them all they need: eaves, valleys, squares, whatever. They don't have to worry about anything, no conversions, nothing like that. They just plug in the number straight out of report. It gives them an estimate.
And then I know Job Nimbus has a pretty powerful estimating software or solution in there too, right? I've seen it. It like you could do estimates really quickly.
Oh yeah,
if you have all of the back end built out properly, right?
And that's what we did. We created estimate templates that have all the conversions already. I mean, all you do is you put in 10 squares. It tells you how many bundles. It builds in the waste factor that you pre-programmed it. I mean, everything's there. Yeah. And then all of that tells it how many nails, how many this, how many that. It's all there. Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to put it in, right? But
yeah, you have to put it in. You have to build it up front, right? You have to build a lot of that up front, and then once it's built, once it's in there, now when your reps go in or whoever's building out that estimate, it's just it does the calculations for them. So it's harder. It's harder for anyone to mess up.
Correct. The
but
only
it's
way
also quick. It's also fast for that homeowner that wants that quickly. Like if you're pulling an iRoof and then building out that estimate in Job Nimbus, how fast do you think your reps are? How long does that take them?
We can do it on the spot. I mean, basically, they need 30 to 45 minutes, and it's done. And they can go and say to the customer, pull out your phone or pull out your laptop. I just emailed it to you. Let me explain it to you. Let me walk you through it.
Yeah. So now you can still provide that on the spot estimate.
Correct.
Using technology, right? Use the technology that's out there, right? Like the technology is there to do this. And so now you're still giving them the customer what they want in the number, right?
Correct.
They want that number. Are you guys doing in your sales process, that'll spit out an estimate. Is there are you doing like a good, better, best? Are you doing anything like that?
So we just recently started looking at SumoQuote. We haven't been doing it, but we started looking at SumoQuote for that specifically. We're integrated. So we're working through that. And that's one of the things that we want to offer, because we are in a market where it's really weird. I don't know if you've ever been to South Texas, but some of these neighborhoods, you got a mansion in a corner, and then a small house. I mean, it's all over the place, right?
That's right. So
it's tough to just say, oh, we're going to go into this high-end neighborhood. I mean, there's some of them that are very exclusive, but for the most part, it's all over the place. So the good, better, best it works perfectly for us.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it. That's challenging. And I mean, there's smaller towns, right? It's more smaller towns, right? Or cities, small towns all through there. And that's kind of how it is in a lot of, more, towns and cities like that. It's not like oh, that area over there is where the high end homes are. It's like everything just kind of gets built together. Hey, and so moving on from that, like what were some of the things, you did essentially your experience in roofing when you came back into it was more on the subcontracting side of things, correct?
Correct.
What are some of the things that you would tell other subcontractors about becoming a more retail focused, direct to consumer focused?
So being a business owner is a whole different animal, chasing after your own customers. And I didn't understand this either. And this is the other aspect of our business that got us, over the top. It's all about the image. It's all your marketing. It's all about your branding. And even though we were successful, we'd walk away from that neighborhood. Nobody knew who did that roof. Nobody. We didn't use yard signs. We didn't have shirts. We didn't have logos on our vehicles. So it was hard. To be honest with you, even the homeowners that we did business with, sometimes they'd get asked us like, oh, somebody asked me for your number, and I couldn't remember what your company name was. And it was terrible. It was terrible because you're not there in front of them. And when you're branded, when you've got wraps in your vehicles, when all the guys are wearing the shirts with the numbers on them, all your marketing has your logos. They get to learn it. Yeah. And then the neighbors see it. And now you get referrals, right? Because they recognize you. If you come back into the neighborhood, they're like, oh, that's the company that did that roof. And then we got yard signs and those things, right? So that was the next thing that really, now I had all the numbers now and I had all these things. So now the image. So anybody that's coming up is like, it's not all about installing shingles. Anybody can install shingles. It's not about being extra quick to install shingles. Yeah. It's about putting yourself out there so people can recognize you later. And so that's a
great saying for that, a great saying around that. It might have been Grant Cardone or whatever, but it's best known beats best.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So you could be the best installer in the world. That sales and marketing person in your area that becomes the best known, they're going to get the jobs.
Correct.
Before you do, because they are become the best known. So I think that is something that for anyone that's moving in from that side of things, right? If you are a roofer, right, you have to now become what we wrote a book on it called the best known roofer, right? Like you have to become the best known in your area. And so what year did you start to kind of make that shift? Like, oh, this is.
So it was really 2020, 2019, towards the end of 2019, early 2020, when we really started implementing all this technology, which helped us implement all these processes, which helped us realize that we needed to image and brand ourselves really well, which got us into social media and all these things. Right? We've been doing this or implementing these measures and putting these efforts forward for maybe the last 3 years. And I told you before that we couldn't hit 1 million, right? Well, we tripled and quadrupled ourselves in 3 years. I couldn't break 1 million for almost 9 years.
Wow.
Good living. I was doing okay, because cost of living here in South Texas is not that expensive, right? Yeah. So I did okay, but it wasn't until I started looking at what the potential of this business. So that brings me to another thing. I don't know if I remember I told you about my teenage kids. Yeah. They're really interested in the business. And one of my kids said, hey, Dad, I was telling my teacher, my shop teacher, what you were telling me about the trades. And he was like, he's absolutely right. That's where the money's at. He's like, don't come and teach. Learn something, whatever it is, electrician, plumbing, whatever, roofing. That's where the money's at. Right?
It is. My wife works in the flooring industry, and she manages all the crews for her company. Man, these guys are making like multiple six figures a year and installing tile and carpet and things like that. Like I just had this conversation with another person on the podcast, and in an interview for the podcast, and he was saying like that, like we're not taught that anymore. Like even around the house, like it wasn't a long time ago, maybe 2 generations back,
Right.
where people built their own houses, right? Like it wasn't long ago where you had to know these things.
I mean, just the odds and ends of maintenance to a house. Now everybody calls somebody.
Everybody calls somebody, right? So it's not only a lack of people, like skilled workers going into the trades for people to call, but people in general have just stopped paying attention to how to do this themselves. Like my stepfather built we have a cabin in northern Minnesota that he built. He put every screw, every nail, every shingle, everything, every wire that was ran, and expanded on it, and made an addition here and did this there, and that it's like, how do you even know all of these things? And he just like he learned them through the years, and it's like, but those are, it's kind of a lost art, I'll say, right? Like it's something that's very lost. What did your son's, your son's teacher was like, yeah, man, that's the way to go. Like, there's so much opportunity.
I tell him all the time, like I've got one that graduated and is going part-time or wants to work part-time. So he's working part-time with me. He's not one that likes to get on roofs or doing things like that, but he's doing the videography. So we're going to expand our YouTube channel, and he's all into that. He's all gung-ho about it. And so I'm going to give him a job doing that. And then the other one that's going to graduate in a year, he's the one that just flat out says, hey, I want to take over the company when you're done. I want to be the production manager. I want to run the crews. I want to do this. And he knows how to roof because I taught him since he was like 8, 9 years old, right? So he's 17 now, and he's a metal installer. He's a tile installer. He can install just about any roof, right? He just needs a little bit of experience and more age, right? But he's all gung-ho. Now that we've been talking, so this is what I did, actually. And I can't remember what podcast I was listening, what episode of yours, but one that talks about how much money there really is in the industry. I think it was with a lady, and I can't remember what her name is. But I said, listen, you got to listen. And no, it wasn't a lady. It was Roofs by Don, the recent one.
Roofs by Don, yeah.
I said, you have to listen to this podcast because he likes rap music, and he's like,
right, yeah.
And I'm like, it is. I mean, if you got talent, but there's a lot of competition there too, buddy. But you do what you want to do, right? But I want you to listen to something. So he listened to the podcast just yesterday, I think, and he came back and he told me, he's like, really? Can you make that kind of money? That is like, how come you haven't made it? I'm like, because I'm dumb. No, I was like, no, because I haven't done the right things. We're just not doing it. And we're gonna get there. But there's so much potential in this business.
There is. One of the things I heard this on another, I think it was another podcast that I heard this, not in the roofing industry, but more a business related podcast. It was a real estate podcast that I was listening to. And I think this relates to children taking over businesses, right? If you set them up, like you said, you taught him how to roof. Right. You taught him this skill set, and you were taught by your uncle, right? Like you have, it was taught to you. What wasn't taught to you was the business side of things, right?
Right.
So your uncle taught you this. So your problem in your business was not knowing how to install a roof. You didn't have that problem, right? That wasn't a problem. But maybe for your uncle, that might have been a problem. He may have had to learn how to install roofs, right? Like that might have been. So he got it. His generation brought it to, yep, we all know how to install roofs now. Now you take that, and your problem that you have to solve in your lifetime is how to create a business out of it.
Right. Right.
Now, if you can, now you get to have those problems solved for if your sons take over, right? So now when your son takes over, the problem of being able to install a quality roof is gone. The problem of running running it as a business is gone. What are the opportunities that are available from there, right? Because then he just has to go and solve bigger problems.
Right.
And if that's the real, like, how amazing is that? I just thought that was just a perfect way of putting it. That like the guy on the podcast said my kids won't have to, because they were doing real estate investing. He goes, my kids won't ever have to have the problem of how to find a good deal, because I've solved that problem.
Wow. Yeah.
So now they just have to find how to raise more money than I ever could. Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's a different problem that they get to solve. And I just thought that was a cool way of putting it. So there's another one for your son.
Yeah.
Now he just has to learn how to solve bigger problems, because you've solved a lot of them, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now, what about, I always think also from the going back to like the transition from subcontracting into direct to consumer, direct to, I think that sometimes there's a sales problem there. Did you have to solve a sales problem?
So for me, it was difficult at the beginning to hire salesmen, because I don't know. I guess I thought I was the only one that could explain it, right? I'm like, nobody's going to be able to close them, and I can't waste that lead. I gotta go do it. And you have to learn, delegation. You have to learn to trust people, and you got to learn to trust the process. So what I did is, instead of micromanaging or trying to do everything myself when it came to the sales side, because I was the only salesman for the last 2 years until this past year. What I did is I tightened up my processes. I made templates for estimates so it can't go wrong. I got a software, and I trained them really well on how to do the reports, right? The roof report. So we're not short on material or shorting ourselves on labor or, those types of things. And then what I did is I implemented other processes like company cam. So I still have my hands on it, but I'm not the one doing it, but I have my hands on a little bit. If one of my salesmen goes to a job site or do an estimate, and he has a little bit of trouble with an area of a roof that maybe there's a cricket or this or that, he's trying to figure out how we charge this. Like, he'll tell me, hey, go look at company cam. I'm at the customer right now. Can you give me an idea of what we should charge for this? So I immediately jump on my phone, look at it, highlight a few things for some comments, and send it out. And so we just solved the problem that before was they'd have to come to the office. We'd have to sit here and look at his notes and look at pictures he took on his phone, and then figure out whether whether there's something that we can do or not do. And then we needed more information. Oh man, now we got to go back to that home again. So now it's like, okay, you know what? You gave me some pictures, but I need you to do something for me before I can help you. Go to the back of the house and take a picture of this or that or whatever. And we're still at the home, and we're interacting, and I'm back at the office,
Yeah.
and that has helped me let go of the sales a little bit, enough to where now I can multiply my sales. And it has made all the difference in the world. Because before, like I said, I mean, we implemented our systems, we implemented our processes, we did the marketing, but I was still the only one selling, right? And now all these things that we put in place has helped us hire 3 people to sell, train them to sell, and help them be successful at it.
How has that been? How has that been? Because now, when you have people that are just focused on one thing all day, every day, did that your revenue shows it, right? That it's working, right? Like what, but how did that feel for you now? Like, is it a weight off your shoulders that, oh man, I'm not the only one that can sell. Like there are other people that can sell. It's okay.
Absolutely. Actually, one of the things that sometimes I'm surprised about is they'll invite me to go to visit a customer, or also invite a job site when we're done. And the salesman introduces me to the owner. I've just met him, right? I've never met him before. We're almost done with their home, and they're like this guy's my sales guy's like the next best thing to they talk about him. I'm like, how, they never talked about me like that, right? And then they'll make fun of me and they say, see, I told you. I'm like, well, you got all the time in the world to talk to these people. I got other things to do, right?
That's right.
On a company and do all these other things. And sometimes instead of, you thought you were doing the best job that nobody could do, but really in the end, you were neglecting them because you had other things that you'd miss a call from them. You took too long to answer a text, things that you want to do, but you're just so busy, right? So now these guys, that's all they got to do. And,
that's right.
And they're a lot better at it than you, a lot better. I know for a fact my guys are better than I am.
And a lot of it is that's what they're doing all day, every day. Like you said, like they're able to answer the questions. They're able to answer the phone. They're able to get back to people quickly. They're able to follow up probably a lot more diligently than you were able to follow up because you're putting out fires over here and going over there, right? There's stuff that you're doing. And so, man, that's important for owners to know. Like, and you should, I think that you should do your core competency first, right? And hire people that fill the gaps in your business. So if you came from the sales side, maybe you're early on, you're hiring more production side people on the production side, right? That you can count on there. But if you're from the production side, you probably should hire on the sales side.
Right. Yes.
Right.
And it's tough because a lot of times because my daughters are involved and I want this business to be a family business, I always involve my children in it. A lot of times they used to look at the beginning, they're like, oh, some of that money's going to go, right? The profit's going to go. And I'm like, I realize that, but what you don't understand, you make it up in numbers, right? Now we're doing these jobs and now we're getting more reviews and it accelerates the process, right? Yeah. Right. So right now we're at a point where we're working on refining our processes. I mean, we're working on making things a lot more bulletproof so that nothing slips through the cracks. We've got all the automation we need and put in place and working. And now we're refining where everything we do, we try like one of the things like Sumo Code, right? So that's an add-on so that we can expand our customer service basically. So it helps us have more foresight. Think about things that are coming versus putting out fires all the time.
For sure. And so I mean, back what this has been the whole time, man, is technology, right? Like use the technology that's available to you. Use that as the foundation for everything. And then you can improve upon it and improve upon it and improve upon it as you're going along. How are you thinking about your team and hiring and training guys and things like that?
So one of the things that we do like when I still do most of the hiring, we're not big enough to where we have an HR department, right? So I do the hiring by there's predefined tests that we started coming up with, and specifically for the crews, right? We actually do a hands-on kind of thing, right? Where we have a mock-up roof and tell them, okay, here's the material, go do it. Show me what you know, so that I can take it from there, right? Now they can say I don't know anything, and sometimes that's even better, right? If we're looking for a helper, right? But a lot of times there's guys that what they show is not what we want, and they're like, okay, so you're gonna have to unlearn all these things. So that's not the best practice, right? So hands-on kind of training by mocking up the type of work that we offer, the type of jobs that we offer, and putting them through that training helps a lot. And then we also do we participate, like our local suppliers, ABC Supply, and we have a few, SRS, a few, and Beacon. We try to take advantage of any of the training that they provide, that the manufacturers provide through them. So we try to go to, and even the Home Depots, the box stores, they offer some things, right? So anything I can take advantage that I can send my guys to, I'll send them. And it was tough to learn that. Before, I'm like, no, they got to be making money, not costing me money, right? And in the end, they cost you money if you don't have them trained, right?
Man, say that again.
Yeah, no,
they will cost you money if you don't have them trained well, right? Like that's something to be very, very conscious of as you're building out your teams, and especially if you have in-house crews. A lot of people subcontract, and you came from the subcontracting side. What about for the I guess, for people that subcontract, how would you, looking back, and with the relationships that you had on the subcontracting side, how should an owner that subcontracts all or most of their work build those relationships with the subcontracting crews?
So I do have at times, especially when last season when we implement all these processes, started getting a lot more jobs, we had more work that our two in-house crews could handle. So I had to go out and reach out to some of these guys that are grunts, just installers, doing on a per square basis, right? They've got all their equipment. They just need a trailer, right? Put them a trailer so they can empty the trash and they'll do all the work, right? So I found that what you have to do is you have to really vet them, right? And explain what your end game is. So it's not about speed. It's not about so one of the things I found here was the first times was even though we supervised them, they wouldn't quite install shingles like we wanted them to. Maybe not nails. Maybe certain things they wouldn't do, right? So what I told, or they would waste material, or they would throw away material, things so that they could get their squares, right? So some of the things that we told them is like, no, I implemented this where we're pretty close to where we need to be in terms of the material. Sometimes we for sure add a little bit of waste, but I always tell my installer, I'm going to pay you everything. Don't throw it away. Don't waste it. I'm still going to pay you the squares I've said I'm going to pay you. So not because you disappear all these extra bundles or whatever. they some of them do that. Yeah. So we just tell them, this is it. This is what the house measures. Just leave. Please don't throw away anything. Don't waste material. And then another thing is that I've actually, and this is a process that I'm trying to implement, and I think I told you about this. One of the things that I found in South Texas is that a lot of competition is on pricing. So a lot of these guys are trying to, cutthroat each other through lowering their prices. And because some of these crews are out there going after these jobs directly, it's tough to compete when they're constantly just lowering their price, right? So what I've done is I've tried to take some of these guys to school. Like anytime I get to hire a sub crew, anytime I get to meet with them or run into them at a supplier, I always tell them. I mean, I'm always talking to them because I'm older than most of them. Some of these guys are like in their late 20s, early 30s, right? And I always tell them is don't dilute the trade, man. Get what you're worth. Just charge what you're supposed to. And then I'll tell them, what some of these companies are charging. Do you have access to Xactimate? They're like, no, this is what Xactimate pays. This is what you should be charging. And look at what you're charging, man. It's tough. You're not going to make any money that way. Believe me, I've been there. Yeah. And so a lot of these guys, they'll listen to me, right? And especially the subs that we use, right? And they know that we're out there for their benefit, right? So we go at it that way, trying to educate them in terms of don't dilute the trade, provide the best service that you can. And eventually what you got coming to you, it will, right? And we keep them busy, so they're happy about that.
That's right. And I mean, I guess if you teach them some of the value that you have to the customer, right? Hey, you're in our branded shirts, like you're doing things for us on that side. You're making sure that everything is cleaned up properly. You're doing these things that are your value is there, right? So to the next contractor, you can approach them and say, hey, when we're doing your jobs, make sure that you provide us with shirts and make sure that you do these things for us so that we can help your company, right? That's a different conversation than we'll do it for as cheap as possible.
Correct. Exactly.
Right. So that's something that maybe is important. When back to kind of when you started branding, you told me that you also realized the power in reviews.
Correct. Right. So it didn't matter how good a job we did. Nobody knew. Maybe their mama knew after, we got done. They told somebody, one of their relatives for one or two, but nobody really knew how good a job we did. And I was like, and again, this came through listening to all these podcasts and watching all these videos of people having success already. I was like, okay, we got to get on this. So now every customer, my pitch when I sell, and this is what I tell my sales guys, is I'm going to do such a good job, because they'll always ask, how good are your crews and this and that. I'm going to do such a good job on your roof. You're going to want to give me a 5-star review. And I don't want anything less, so I'm going to give you 5-star service. But you mention it 3 or 4 times, 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Uh-huh. So when you finish the job, you're like, did I do a 5-star? And they're like, yes, you did. All right, can I get a 5-star? And you just keep saying it, right? And they will do it. We send them the link. We do a bunch of things, right? So in the end, and this is automation that we built into Job Nimbus. So after we're done, we moved a job to closed and paid, and it automatically generates an email and a text that sends it to them that says, we're done. We are so happy that you chose us. Please refer us. And we do include a little bit of spill about our referral program. If you can refer us, we will do this for you, do this for that. And here's the link for that 5-star review you promised us. And in most of the time, we don't have to go back and ask them. Now, there are some cases where people, it's not that they don't want to do it. They forget, I don't have time. But we'll ask up to 3 times that initial automated message, and then we do another text. And then finally, at the end, if they still haven't done it, we actually follow up with a call. And either with the office manager, my daughter, or myself will do it. And be like, where's that 5-star review you promised me? And they're like, oh, man, I forgot. I've just been busy or whatever. So we've been doing that for the last couple of years. And about 1/10 of the people that actually, the work you actually do, give you a review at the end, regardless, no matter how much you insist, right? At least that's what we found. And not that they're not happy, but people just, it's not something they're used to, right? They'll give you a bad review real quick. But
that's right.
But they're not that prone to give you a good review unless you insist, right?
Yeah.
So we built up close to 100 real quick, by just asking for them. And now it's like, okay, this is a thing now. Now we got to get a 5-star on every job. So we walked through that process and built that automation, put in those phone calls, and it's been working.
I love that you're seeding the thought of it, right? You're planting the seed, right? And then at the end, when you're asking for the review, now they're more willing to do it. And like you said, you're not going to get them all. It would be nice, man. Oh my goodness. If you could get them all, it'd be crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But you're not going to get them all, but you're going to get far less if you don't ask, right?
Another thing we do to kind of promote that we did the job is the yard signs. I used to go collect the yard signs. And then I learned from Reno, Paramount Roofing.
Yeah, Eric Reno, yeah.
Go back from, I just leave them there, right? I was like, you know what? That makes all this. It's only like $8 if you buy 200-300 of them at a time. It's only like $4 or $5. So I was like, that's what we're doing from now on. I'm like, we're not collecting any yard signs. If and when they call and say, what about your yard sign? Oh, if you're ready to take it off, take it off. Use it as a mat or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or unless you have more business with them, you're like, it gives you an excuse to swing by and talk to them, right? But for sure. Now the yard signs, man, I went to a house we did last year this weekend, and the sign is still on the yard, falling over. I stopped the lady. I remembered that she liked the Starbucks, so it was a Starbucks nearby. I grabbed a Starbucks and went knocked on the door, and I said, "Thank you for not taking the yard sign out." He's like, "It's bending a little. You might want to change the little stand on it." I was like, "Awesome! I love that."
That's great, man. And I'm like, that's where all of those little things add up. Like they add up and they add up. It's awesome. What do you think the kind of, the greatest insight is that you could share with the audience that's helped you find success with your roofing business?
Just don't give up. I mean, this industry has a lot to offer. It can be a real business, a real career, a real path to success if you just stick to it, but you got to be diligent. You have to go out and reach for help. You got to listen to the people that already did. They're doing it. They're making the money. You got to you got to implement these things. Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. Implement all these systems. You as a owner, change your mind, change your thought process. Don't think so small anymore. It's not about, I find that if you think it nowadays, anything I want to do in my business, if I think it enough, for some reason, my actions, everything I do drives me towards that. So that's what I would tell anybody. Just get that drive. Just keep going.
That's awesome, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more revenue through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com to get a copy of the book, The Best Known Roofer. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. Thanks for listening.